No society can ever be free if it embraces moral relativism. Communists on becoming God. Let's look at what they did in comparison to what Nazis did. And of course, we already heard about the ways that they murdered people. But this was their socialist New World Order of masters and slaves. The Soviet Union kept complete control over their people. Even the very thoughts of the populace were kept tightly in check. Soviet laws were unimaginably strict. Soviet psychologists literally classified people who were unhappy living under the Soviet regime as insane. Anyone who was expressing desires for freedom or justice were diagnosed as having sluggish schizophrenia. Symptoms listed in Soviet psychology books included, quote, reform delusions, or, quote, struggling for truth. Thousands of people were sent to mental hospitals for suggesting that the Soviet society could be better, and hundreds of psychologists worked on teams dedicated to diagnosing dissidents with schizophrenia. The Soviets created a policy of militant atheism and wanted to systematically stamp out religion wherever it could be found. Atheism was promoted as scientific truth, and churches were torn down. In their place, the Soviets literally built museums of atheism. And this is the Vilnius Museum of Atheism, shown in the picture there, from a former church. Unemployment became a capital crime in the Soviet Union. Anyone who didn't show up to work could be thrown into a gulag. Soviet law labeled anyone who was unemployed as a person leading, quote, a parasitic existence. The day you lost your job, you became a criminal, and you could be thrown into a forced labor camp for the offense. Even 20 minutes of lateness to work brought one into the realm of capital offense. Leaving work early could lead up to 4 months in prison, and missing a shift could lead to 6 months of corrective labor. It was a crime to attempt to feed yourself from nature. There were specific laws against collecting wild fruits, nuts, and berries. You could find yourself in a gulag for picking a single cherry off a tree. And here you see Joseph Stalin doing the hidden hand symbol that you previously saw Karl Marx performing. And there he is as the god of the Soviet Union. It was even incredibly dangerous to be the first to stop applauding during a political speech in the Soviet Union. To cease applause meant to the Soviets that you were a dissident. People clapped for so long at a political speech that sometimes a bell would have to be rung to let them know that they could stop. Consequence for insufficient applause was severe. After a tribute to Stalin was proposed at a political speech in Moscow, the crowd continued to applaud for 11 minutes straight. No one in the audience had the courage to stop applauding, so people clapped until their hands became red. Finally, one man sat down, after which the entire crowd followed suit. And that man, who was the first to sit, was arrested and sentenced to 10 years in a gulag, with the police telling him, "Don't ever be the first to stop applauding." This is where our society is headed, folks.